Scary Stories, Part 2. In November 2019, I went on a business trip to a small town in Michigan. The place was completely out in the middle of nowhere, as if stuck in time. The company I worked for had rented a house for me through a local realtor. It was old, two-story, with shabby paint and an attic that the agent said hadn't been used in a long time. He warned, "If you hear creaks upstairs, don't be alarmed. The house is old. The wood is playing up." I brushed it off. I was tired after the road and just wanted to go to bed. For the first 2 days, everything was quiet, except for the eerie silence around me. No cars, no people. It was like I was alone in the whole neighborhood. On the third day, I was awakened at night by a banging sound. Soft at first, then louder and louder. It was like someone walking in the attic. I remembered what the agent had said, but my heart was pounding. I went up to the second floor to make sure it wasn't the wind or an animal, but it was quiet. Just the wooden stairs to the attic and the locked hatch. I went back to bed, but I couldn't sleep. On the fourth day, I heard someone whisper my name. I was alone in the house. The whispering came from the second floor, even though I had been sitting downstairs all evening. When I got up, I found footprints on the dusty floor barefoot, long, jagged toes. They led to the trapdoor. The lock on the hatch was broken. I called the police. They came, went up to the attic. It was empty. Just an old doll in the corner and writing on the walls. Scrawled everywhere, "You're down. I'm up. But soon it will be the other way around." The policeman looked at me and said, "Apparently teenagers were messing around," and drove off. That night I locked the bedroom, turned on the light and lay down with the knife under my pillow. At 3:11 a.m., I heard the bedroom door slowly open. The lock wasn't salvageable. Someone had twisted it from the inside. I lay under the covers and felt someone standing by the bed. First the smell vile, like rotten meat and wet cardboard. Then the creaking of the floor. Very slow, dragging. I dialed 911 without taking my eyes off the ceiling. Suddenly the phone slipped out of my hand, my fingers wet with sweat. When I bent down to pick it up, something cold and wet grabbed my face. I woke up in the morning. The lights were on. The door was closed. Everything looked like I dreamed the whole thing. But there were palm marks on the bathroom mirror. Long, narrow, with 5 fingers. I left the same day. A couple weeks later, I got a call from the same realtor. His voice was shaky. You sure you left there?" "Yeah, a long time ago." "Why?" He fell silent, then said, "The next tenant." He went down to the basement, found a ladder to the attic. It was covered in dirt and hair and teeth, empty crowns. He stopped talking again. There was no attic. A house with no attic. There never had been one. After that call, I started digging deeper. I found the local archives and contacted the town librarian. He was surprised by my interest and told me that the house at that address had been vacant for 20 years until this realtor showed up. I asked his name, and then the librarian was silent for a few seconds. "That can't be. You said he introduced himself as Thomas Wilkinson?" "Yes." "Shit. Thomas Wilkinson is the name of a man who lived in this house and disappeared in 1998. He was never found. The house sat empty until the city auctioned it off." I typed the address into Google Maps, turned on the panorama. The house didn't show up. Just a piece of woods. No street, no license plate. It was like it never existed. I decided to go back. I brought my GoPro, a knife, a flashlight. I wanted to set things straight, make sure I wasn't glitching. I got into town. Except the streets I drove down that time didn't lead to home. They just weren't there. I wandered around the neighborhood for almost 2 hours until I spotted an old lady at a roadside store. I approached. "Excuse me, can you tell me where this house is?" I showed her a printout of the address. She looked at it, turned pale, dropped her cigarette, and walked away silently into the back of the store. A minute later, a young guy came out, a salesman. "Get out of here. Now. We don't talk about this house." That night I stayed at a motel on the highway. I woke up at 2:47 to the sound of dripping water. I thought the faucet was unscrewed. I went to the bathroom and froze. I saw myself in the mirror, but the reflection didn't follow my movements. It was standing there, looking straight into my eyes. The face was mine, but as if a little skewed. Eyes blacker than usual. It raised a finger and put it to its lips. Shoo! I screamed, smashed the mirror, fell to my knees in the shards. When I looked up, the reflection was gone. The next day I drove home. On the way, the car stalled in the middle of the road. Forest on the sides. No communication. I tried to start it, the battery was dead. And then I saw him in the rearview mirror. Thomas. About 20 feet away, standing between the trees. Head tilted, eyes blank, arms down to his knees. He's not moving. I screamed, jumped out of the car, and ran down the highway. A couple minutes later, I heard barefoot footsteps following me on the pavement. Top. Stomp. Slowly. Not running. Just walking. When I looked back, he was closer. When I blinked, he was right in front of me. I screamed. And then I woke up at home. In my bed. Everything looked normal. Except there was another one of my phones in the kitchen. And on it, a GoPro video. 4 hours of darkness. Then the camera turns on. And there I am. I'm looking straight into the lens, smiling. And I say, I'm back. And then there's a black screen and a scream. A very, very long scream. I was shaking. Literally. I listened to the tape 15 times, but I couldn't remember when I shot it. Where it was shot. Who was that me in the shot? I tried to delete the file, but every time it came back. With a new name. Once it was just the date. Then I'm still here .mp4. Then you brought me back .mp4. The next day, when I tried to leave the house, the door wouldn't open. No keys, no crowbar, no shoulder, nothing. The windows were tightly boarded up from the inside. I didn't. Words began to appear on the walls. First barely visible scribbles, then clearly scratched letters. Thank you for coming back. My phone exploded with notifications. All from my own number. Video. Photos. Screenshots from moments I don't remember. One shows me sleeping with someone standing by the bed. Another shows me sitting in the basement, eyes gouged out, mouth sewn shut. The third one is me, but with Thomas's face. And it says he's no longer needed. You're better. The last thing I remember is starting to hear the creaking floorboards in every room. It was as if someone was slowly, measuredly walking through the house. One step at a time. And then the door to my room opened. But it wasn't him. It was me. With a face contorted in a never-ending smile. With black, empty eyes. He walked up to me and whispered, "You're in the picture now." And I've been watching ever since. Watching him live in my place. And I'm on the record. Forever. Victor had always been a skeptic. He did not believe in mysticism, ghosts, or supernatural phenomena. His life was grounded in rationality and scientific facts. That all changed when he accidentally came across a strange mirror in an antique shop on the outskirts of town. He was there to buy a gift for his wife. The strange mirror caught his attention immediately. It was different from all the others. The frame was decorated with intricately carved patterns, and the glass itself was slightly cloudy, as if its surface was slightly covered with a mist. The seller, an old man with yellow eyes, strongly advised him to buy this particular mirror. He said it was special, but he refused to explain what it was. Victor laughed, thinking that the old man was just trying to sell a product. For that kind of money, he could have bought anything, but something about the mirror made him wonder. He bought it. The mirror he brought home took its place of honor in the living room. He set it against the door so that it reflected the entire room. Once in the chair, Victor noticed that there was something wrong with the reflection. Everything seemed slightly distorted, like the same murky glass. He put his hand to the glass, and suddenly his reflection froze for a second, despite his movement. Frightened, he moved away, but decided it was just a defect in the glass. As time went on, however, he began to notice more and more oddities. From time to time, his reflection seemed to lag behind his movements, and in some cases it began to move independently of him. One night, when Victor awoke to a strange noise, he found himself face to face with a mirror. He looked into it, and this time his reflection didn't just linger, it moved. It wasn't repeating his movements, it was doing something completely different, distorted, rapid gestures, as if someone was trying to get out of the mirror. In a panic, Victor bounced away from the mirror, but his reflection kept moving. It became more aggressive, its face contorted in horrible grimaces. And then, as Victor shrank back into a corner, his reflection raised its hand and, smiling ominously, said, "We've come for you." He tried to move away, but his body became restrained. He couldn't move. The seconds dragged on like hours, and suddenly, it was gone. The mirror went back to normal. The next morning, Victor tried to remove the mirror in a panic, but it was so heavy that it could not be moved. He even called a specialist, but the specialist said he saw nothing unusual about the object. Victor, losing more and more confidence in reality, noticed that every day his reflection became less and less like him. The face in the mirror was increasingly strange, the eyes were blank, the movements unnatural. And a week later, when Victor once again went to the mirror to check what was going on, he saw his reflection leave the mirror, starting to move in his direction. Victor felt his body paralyzed with fear, but tried to run away. The moment he turned around, his reflection leaned forward and whispered into his ear, "You are ours now." And no one else saw him.
Hey, like and subscribe to follow our new videos.